Hey everybody, welcome to U3-L4 Ancient Greece Basics. So, learning targets today. Students can identify basic Greek mythology and religion, identify elements of a polis, identify the role of warriors and farmers in Greek city-states, and explain how democracy in Greek is similar to the US's democracy. So play a little guessing game at the end of this. Your job today, you're going to watch this ed puzzle. You're going to answer the questions. The questions that are in blue ticks are just the questions I want you to answer on the ed puzzle. You are also going to follow along with your study guide. Any important concepts on the study guide will be in red text. If you have questions, feel free to email either me or you can email Mrs. Hinkle if you have her. And you're more than welcome to come to either of our office hours. Um, Over MEA though, that Monday of where it's just 2 days a week, I won't have office hours. But if you need me, just email me, okay? Sweet. First question for you, just type this in the ed puzzle. What comes to your mind when you think of ancient Greece? Yeah, probably statues, right? So you have things like the Acropolis. You might think of like mythology with the Cyclops. You might think of like really detailed statues of like gods and monsters. Um, Probably think of Athena. Probably think of a lot of wine, olive oil, Disney. They're all there. All right. So here's kind of a map of ancient Greece. I know I put one on your study guide as well, but it's really great just to look to see where some of these really important cities are. So Athens and Sparta, those are going to be the really big cities that we talk about. So Sparta's down here in the south. Athens is a little bit more up here. You also have places like Delphi, which is really famous for the Oracle of Delphi. You also have Mount Olympus, which we will talk about in just a couple of slides from now. You also have Troy. There's a movie named Troy. It's actually one of the movies we could watch for History Through Film, but I did not choose it for this year. Um, that's over in Anatolia. So you can see it's quite an extensive range of ancient Greece along the Mediterranean Sea. If you want to look at a world map, ancient Greece would be right here. Okay, so like here's the Middle East, here's Europe, so it's part of Europe. Pretty close to northern Africa. It's a very centrally located area. All right, so it's Greek mythology time. Think back to your Percy Jackson tween novel days and match the gods to their descriptions. I am not grading on right or wrong, so no using Google. Just give me your best guess. All right, let's see if we got them right. All right, so Poseidon, he is the god of the sea, storms, earthquakes, and horses. Hades, he's going to be the god of the underworld. Ares is the god of war and courage. Zeus is the god of the sky. Athena is the goddess of war, handicraft, and practical reason. And Aphrodite is the goddess of love and beauty. I heard there's a new like Percy Jackson. Is it a movie or TV show coming out? I don't know much details about it. It'll be interesting to see. All right. So, religion in ancient Greece. So, Greek writing was created approximately 800 BCE. Religious aspects before then were passed down orally, so there's a lot of variations to stories. So if you ever like are looking up Greek mythology, um, like videos on YouTube or videos or like other resources, you'll probably see there's a lot of different variations of a lot of the stories. That's just because it was originally passed down orally, so different towns, different cities, different families have different ways of explaining that story. Um, yeah. They were polytheistic, meaning they believed in many gods, particularly the 12 main gods on Mount Olympus. There's also dozens of other minor gods. So Mount Olympus is actually a real place. I mean, it's not like the shiny cloud city where the gods live, but this is a picture of Mount Olympus, and it's thought where the top of it is where the gods live. It is the tallest mountain in Greece. And typically, Greeks had temples where they held worship services, sacrifices, and also oracle prophecies, which you can learn more about during the video choice, which is at the very end of this unit. All right, Greek resources. So, Greek had a lot of really important resources, but not really farming resources. So they had a lot of maritime resources, right? So they had water. Not only could they get like food from the ocean, but also they had a lot of great trading because all the cities were by the ocean. They have a very thin layer of topsoil, which was not good for farming. Um, so if there was farming done, it was of plants that had very low roots, such as grains, so like wheat and rye and barley. They also had olive trees. That's an example of an olive tree right there. That's what they look like. Grapes, of course. They also had sheep and goats. They're really famous for their marble. Also, clay, which then was made into pottery, like you see here. And they also got resources like gold, timber, iron, copper, tin, and other grains from places like Anatolia, Cyprus, Egypt, and Italy by boat, because Greece is just made up by a bunch of different islands. So, a polis slash a city state. Greece landscape is very hilly and has lots of valleys. So there are no like big, huge, widespread cities because simply the landscape just doesn't support it. Like cities are either on the mountainside or they're in the valley. So that causes things called polis, aka city states. So they are cities with an immediate rural surrounding that is the center of political and cultural rule. So that city is their own country slash kingdom. So when we talk about like Athens and Sparta, they're going to be the examples of the city states. City states can be a few thousand people to several hundred thousand people, which you'll learn about later that Athens had a population of approximately 140,000. All right, the Acropolis. That translates to the top of the city, and that's where the city center was located on top of the hill. So, my question for you is what buildings were built and who do you think lived on the Acropolis? So, that's where high ranked people and royals lived. They lived on top of the hill. That was the place to be. There was also religious temples up there, like the Athenian Acropolis. That's probably one of the most famous. It was also the place to hold entertainment shows like dances, musicians, and plays. The Agora. So, that translates to the gathering place. So it's an open area or plaza. All of the city states had them. The government buildings were also located there. And it was really a rallying point for citizens to voice opinions about politics and military affairs. So let's say, like, you're an Athenian and they want to go to war with Sparta, and you're like, no way, I don't want to go to war with Sparta. You would run to the Agora and, like, start shouting out to the public, being like, no, don't go to war. I don't want to go to war. That would be the place to do it. There's also a place for open air markets. So here's a modern day agora in Greece. Rural citizens. So those are citizens who lived on the outskirts of the polis. So they're farmers, they're herders, again, sheep and goats being the primary animals, and it's a main source of food for city people. They are very highly appreciated members of society. Um, they are not outcast, even though they live kind of right outside of the outskirts of the main part of the city, and they are always very welcomed into the city, right? Because they're the ones that are making the food. Without them, everyone else would starve. So, farmers are warriors? Yeah. So, a lot of warriors in the ancient Greece time um, were were farmers, right? Did I say farmers or warriors first? Anyway, moving on. Farmers were the first to be chosen to be the soldiers in a war. So wars between poli or city states were mostly about farmland, right? There was very few of it, so if you could get it, you had to have it. More farmland meant more food, which meant that you can have a bigger population in your city state. So here's my question for you. If farmers are battling in wars, what's a major problem with that? Yeah. You're probably thinking, like, wait, if the farmers go off and they're on this big military campaign, no one's farming. That's actually kind of the interesting thing about Greece and their warriors. So, their warriors are called hoplites. They're heavily armed soldiers. They're not full time soldiers. Again, they're citizen soldiers, mostly farmers. Um, and the cool thing about them is that when they went to go fight in wars, like they'd be gone for like a day or two, and then they'd come back and farm. So one day they're in a battle, the next day they're back on their farm doing farm stuff. They also had formations where all the hoplite soldiers would line up shoulder to shoulder with their shields and their swords, so they were like a giant moving wall. Again, they battled neighboring poli, so none of it was ever too far away. And battles lasted usually a few hours, and survivors left after a few hours to go back to their farm fields. So it's like they come home and be like, "Oh, hey dear, how was the battle today? I'm so happy you're back to come and farm." Anyway, so the Greeks were very snooty people as well. The Greeks thought very highly of themselves. They called themselves the Hellenists, um, and they called all foreigners barbario. So, next question. What English word, not world, word does barbario sound like? Yes, it sounds like barbarian, and that is someone who is thought to be uncivilized. Um, though their language, religion, lifestyle, or they thought that their language, religion, and lifestyle was superior to all others. Um, although the other polises were their rivals and they would go to war, they all spoke and wrote Greek in the same alphabet. So a lot of their like everyday things were the same, although they all thought they were better than each other. All right, tyrants. So early Polish governments ruled by kings or royal families. This was between 800 and 700 BCE. These governments usually owned most of the farmland, and then farmers had to buy seed from the king or the royals, and then give portion of harvest back to them as like a tax. They also made kings. This really made kings and royals really power hungry, and that's how they became a tyrant. So a tyrant is someone who holds power and is unfair to the lower classes. So hoplite soldiers, which again are mostly farmers, demanded their say in politics, and this leads to the formation of democracy. Ugh, fun. All right, so democracy is born. Yay! Demo translates to people, Kratos translates to power. So democracy literally means people hold the power. And that's still true today, right? Because the United States is a democracy. So people vote on political issues. So next up, we're going to answer some questions about similarities and differences between Athens democracy, which is Polis and which is a city state in ancient Greece, and the US's democracy. And I don't expect you to know the differences between them, so just take an educated guess. Don't Google or anything like that. And then on your study guide, you're also going to write down the similarities and differences on the lesson 4 Venn diagram. So let me show that to you real quick here. Hold on. There we go. All right, so here is your study guide, right? Okay, let's scroll down. So you have lesson 4 here. So we went through all these words already. So you're going to keep scrolling down. You're going to get to this Venn diagram. I also have a video of how to edit it here. What you're going to do to edit it is you're going to double click on the pick. This brings up the drawing tool. You're going to click here on the text box, and then you're going to drag and drop a text box like this, and then you can start typing in the similarities and differences of Athens democracy versus the US's democracy. Pretty cool, right? All right, we'll save and close that. Perfect. All right, let's go back to the slides. If you have questions or need help, let me know too. I'll be more than happy to help you out. All right, let's get started. So, democracy in ancient Greece versus America. So, a direct democracy. That's when citizens debate and vote directly on laws that govern their city. Which democracy has a direct democracy? Is it Athens or is it America? That one's going to be Athens, actually. So the U.S. has something called the representative democracy, where people vote and elect officials who then represent them to a larger government. So people in the U.S. don't vote directly on laws that govern their city. Once in a while, you can get that, but typically, is you vote for someone who represents you. All right. Which democracy had government officials be chosen by a lottery, which is a random drawing? Yes, hopefully you said Athens. So the U.S. chooses government officials by the candidate that gets the most votes. That would be kind of crazy, right? If you had just like a random drawing. You're like, whoever this candidate is, you win. Which democracy fines citizens or paints a red X on them if they don't vote? Okay, hopefully you also said Athens. Yeah, US democracy, no one can force a citizen to vote. But in Athens democracy, if you didn't vote, you were publicly shamed. Who is classified to be an Athens citizen? Choose all that apply. Yeah, so to be an Athens citizen was kind of tricky. Okay, first of all, you had to be male. Both of your parents had to be from Athens. So even if like your mom wasn't from Athens, that meant you weren't a citizen. You also had to be a landowner, and you had to be free, meaning you could not be enslaved. So, who is classified to be an American citizen? Choose all that apply. So, you either had to be born into the United States, or you could be naturalized into the US. So that means that you're born elsewhere but went through the documents and tests to become a US citizen. There's also some other specific but not so common ways, but I won't get into that because I don't teach government. I teach world history. All right, true or false? Athens did not have a constitution. False. Athens did have a constitution, and it had three branches of government. Oh my gosh, it's just like the U.S., but it's a little bit different. So their first branch was called the Council of 500. The second one was called the Assembly, and the third one was called the Courts. So you can kind of think of courts as like the um, Department of Justice. The Assembly was kind of like Congress, and the Council of 500 was kind of, sort of, not really like the House of Representatives. Yeah, it's a little bit different. Yeah. If you want to learn more, you can certainly ask me. I'll give you some information. So, next question. What are the three branches of the U.S. government set up by the U.S. Constitution? So, we have the legislative branch, the judicial branch, and also the executive branch. So, remember, legislative, that's like Congress, House of Representatives. Judicial, that's where you have all the judges. Executive, that would be the president. What percent of people in Athens could vote? 20%. Yeah, that's not very many. They might have been a democracy, but they weren't a did not represent everybody who lived there. So what percentage of people in the US can vote? 93% of people in the United States can vote. Crazy if you think about Athens just being 20. Okay, so now it's time to learn about Athens versus Sparta. You ready? You sure you're ready? There's a lot to talk about. But I'm not going to talk about it here. Actually, you're going to do U3-L5, which is a reading on Athens versus Sparta. On it, you're going to complete a Venn diagram of similarities and differences between Athens and Sparta. To do this, you are going to use the Schoology's annotation app. Last year I used Cami. It worked pretty slick. This year is a little different. We're using Schoology's annotation app. So let me know if you have troubles with it because this is my first year using it. And then here, I'll show it to you. Hold on one second here. Whoops. Here it is right here. So here are the directions. Here is what you need to read for the Athens versus Sparta. Nice and color coded. I also posted a video of me reading it out loud. So if you don't want to read it, you can just listen to me. And then here's the Venn diagram. You're going to edit it like I just showed you with the one on the study guide. And then this is where you're really going to use the Schoology annotation app. What you're going to do is you're going to draw what you think like an Athenian would look like and what you think a Spartan would look like. Um, and you're going to do that based on the evidence in the text that you just read. You're going to have to give me some details about what you draw. You can't just like put a stick figure and like be like, that's a Spartan. Like, no, okay. You can draw a stick figure, but make sure that you like put clothes on it of what you think they'd wear, and what they would be doing. And you can't just take a picture from Google. Okay. I want to see your hand drawn pictures. Um, you can also draw it in real life and just upload a picture, like take a picture of what you drew in real life and just upload it onto the document. You can do that too if you'd rather do that. That's totally fine with me. Um, yeah. So let me know how that goes and if you have any questions, because I do love seeing your pictures. They're always very interesting. All right, so let's wrap it up for today, shall we? Mhm. So today we learned about Mount Olympus, Greek resources, Polis, Acropolis, Agora, Hoplites, Tyrant, and then the Venn diagram on Athens versus US democracy. Next up, you're going to do U3-L5, Athens versus Sparta reading assignment. Questions, you're going to email your teacher, Mrs. Hinkle or Miss Corey, that's me. If you want to learn more, please feel free to email me. I'll be happy to respond. My office hours are Mondays from 12 to 1. Mrs. Hinkle's are from Wednesday to 2 to 3. You can come to either of them. And a weekly check-in, if you're in my class, please do that. All right, that's all I got for you today. Thanks for watching, y'all. Bye.